So what's a level surface? A level surface is what you would get, what you would obtain, the surface you'd obtain when you take a function of three variables and you set it equal to a constant. Okay? If you had a function of two variables and set it to a constant, that's called a level curve. And with three variables, you have a level surface. Let's see why it's a surface, okay? Let's take our function here. There's a function of three variables, x, y, and z. Square them and add them together. Let's set them equal to some constant. When we set them equal to a constant, when we set our function equal to a constant, we get spheres of radius r is equal to square root of c. Okay, so this constant is basically the radius squared. And now you could see why you end up with a surface rather than a curve, right? You have three variables, you set it to some constant. That means once you determine two of them, then the final variable is unique, is determined, right? So if you know, y is equal to 1 and z is equal to 1, we could then solve for x. We'll get a plus and minus value, so it's not uniquely determined. It nonetheless is a surface. You have 2 degrees of freedom, okay? You have 2 degrees of freedom to move the variables so that you're in what gives you 2 degrees of freedom, what allows you to go up and down, left and right. That's a surface. On a curve, you could only move forward and backward. On a surface, you could have 2 degrees of freedom of motion. So let's take a look at this function of 3 variables that we see here. We have the square root of z minus x squared minus 2y squared. Okay, it's a function of 3 variables. We get a value out, the w value. Okay, and we can't put the w axis in any reasonable way, right? We cannot visualize the 4 dimensions very easily, but we can represent them with color. So we could look at, for example, the level surface. Where would our function equal 0? Well, it would equal 0 anywhere on that paraboloid. What you're seeing there is in the domain. That is not the function. Okay? The function is represented by the color, actually. So anywhere in that on that paraboloid that you see there. So anywhere on this brown object, the function equals 0 on that. And what about when w equals 1? So where does the function equal 1? It equals 1 on that reddish pink paraboloid. Okay? And where does our function of 3 variables equals 2? Equal 2. Equals 2 on the green that you see there. And where does it equal 3? 3. These are in the domain. I got to stress to you, what you're looking at is the domain. You are not looking at the range. The range is shown in color. The bluer it is, the higher the value. And we cannot have a w-axis drawn because we cannot visualize the 4th dimension. We would be stuck drawing it in a 3-dimensional space. But we can visualize with color. So as you looking at the domain there, the color represents the w-axis. And w equals 3 is blue. And w equals 0, for example, is the brown. And just a quick note, I call it a paraboloid, but some people call it paraboloid. So whichever one makes you happier.